when I was drinking more than I wanted to, it would have felt like bad luck or like I was inviting ruin upon my friends if I didn't participate in, cheers and toasts and things like that. Like, think about going to a wedding and, like not toasting the new couple with alcohol. If I'm not sipping champagne and wishing them well and toasting with everybody, am I like, I don't know, like spreading some negative energy onto their marriage or something like that? And like it's so
Oh,
absurd when you say it out loud, I think. Like it's but it's one of those things where the insidiousness of the alcohol myth is that it goes unspoken, right? It's like this subconscious programming that we've just absorbed, and that's one of the reasons that we do this podcast, so that we can say the ridiculous thing out loud, shine a light on it,
yeah.
and be like, you don't actually make sense or have that much power over me if I see it, acknowledge it, and talk about it. Why does the world act like alcohol is the answer, even while it is creating problems of its own?
On the Alcohol Myth podcast, we pull back the curtain so you can see what's really going on with alcohol and what life could be like without it.
We are coaches trained in This Naked Mind and effective liminal psychology who fell for the alcohol myth for decades. Now we help people take back control of their lives by changing their relationship with alcohol from the inside out.
You don't need to wait for a rock bottom. You don't need more willpower. You just need a new way to understand what you are feeling and why you are reaching for that next drink.
So let's dig in. Welcome to the Alcohol Myth Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan, and I'm joined by your other host, Ellen. Hey, Ellen.
Hey, Jonathan, good to see you.
Good to see you. We are trained in effective liminal psychology, and we're coaches that help people navigate and find freedom from alcohol. And to do that, we get together and talk about the myths that alcohol has been feeding us our whole lives. And today's myth is a doozy. Today's myth has me hung up for a long time, and it is the myth that it's not a celebration if you don't have alcohol. Whew. We just, at the time of this recording, I just navigated my second AF birthday. And
Happy
my
birthday.
birthday, thank you, thank you. I'm older and wiser now than I've ever been. But my birthday happens to fall the day after St. Patrick's Day. And I get a little Irish in my ancestry. And so I always took St. Patrick's Day as a wonderful excuse to celebrate. And that meant drinking way, way, way to excess. And then, yippee, I've got my birthday the following day, which was another reason to drink way, way, way to excess. But, and so I fell for that myth for the vast majority of my life, that it's not a celebration unless you're drinking. But this year, uh, once again, I navigated St. Patrick's Day and then my birthday without alcohol. And I got to tell you, it was better than all of my boozy, blurry, barely remembered experiences of celebrations and birthdays in the past. But Ellen, let me throw it over to you. When you hear that it's not a celebration unless you have alcohol, what comes up for you?
Oh, yes, 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 and yes. Me too, kept me stuck for a really long time. It was like how I could not fathom uh, celebrating, having joyful occasions, which are very important to me. I'm all about the joy. And it was almost like if I removed alcohol, I would be removing the joy. I mean, I believed that. So it was like, well, I'm about the joy. I can't remove the alcohol, then there's no joy. So in celebrations for sure, right? Birthdays, anniversaries. I mean, somebody gets good news, a promotion, I mean, does you name it, all the holidays, of course, Friday. I mean, there's so many things to celebrate, especially if you're someone that centers their life around joy, right? So Yeah, and I'm so curious to hear some of like a contrasting story from you because St. Patrick's Day, of course, being like one of the booziest days of the year, I think, coupled by your birthday, which is typically a really boozy day for a lot of people too. I mean, and the beliefs that I imagine you had around how amazing it is that you get to double drink for your birthday, right? Like, I mean, we think that we're getting away with something. And then to contrast that with like how you might spend it differently now. But yeah, I think this myth that we can't celebrate without alcohol is a deeply held one, and it's reinforced by society and messaging. And I mean, Jesus in the Bible, I think, right? Like it just like you got to have wine with all the thing. I mean,
It was like the
we
first
can
miracle.
justify it so much, right? Yeah, I know. So then it's like, well, how can it be bad? How can it be harmful if we've been doing it for centuries and centuries? And it's very easy to talk ourselves into how it's impossible to celebrate without alcohol.
Hmm. I'm even thinking about how, like, when I was drinking more than I wanted to, it would have felt like bad luck or like I was inviting ruin upon my friends if I didn't participate in, cheers and toasts and things like that. Like, think about going to a wedding and, like not toasting the new couple with alcohol. Like, if I'm not sipping champagne and wishing them well and toasting with everybody, am I like, I don't know, like spreading some negative energy in onto their marriage or something like that? And like it's so
Oh,
absurd when you say it out loud, I think. Like it's but it's one of those things where the insidiousness of the alcohol myth is that it goes unspoken, right? It's like this subconscious programming that we've just absorbed, and that's one of the reasons that we do this podcast so that we can say the ridiculous thing out loud, shine a light on it,
yeah.
and be like, you don't actually make sense or have that much power over me if I see it, acknowledge it, and talk about it.
And it's so universal too. Like when you share that story about the wedding, I had this flashback to my dad remarried when I was in my 20s. And I went to the wedding, and my dad, I don't know what he would call himself, but he drank and then he stopped drinking. He never went to AA, but he did that a couple times. But now he's not been drinking for a very long time. And at the time of their wedding, he was not drinking and had not been drinking. And the woman he was marrying did not want him drinking. That was part of the reason why he quit for the second time. And at the wedding toast, what you're describing, her parents provided a beautiful bottle of champagne for everyone to have a toast. And they insisted. My dad was like, "No, I don't drink. I don't." And they were like, it became this thing. They were like, "Can you at least just put it to your lips?" Like they were so worried that it would be bad luck. They wanted an alcoholic to put champagne to his lips so that their wedding would not be ruined. And just like when you think about the insanity, right? But that's how deeply ingrained it is. This messaging, it's no joke. It's not like it's like we believe this stuff.
We
I
really do.
believed this stuff. I mean, I didn't believe that one. I thought that was a step too far. But I believe that if you weren't an alcoholic, you should darn well be drinking on your, the toast.
Yeah. I mean, and the I think the one of the most exciting things about doing this work and having these conversations is that we then get to at least step toward, if not step into responsibility for our own beliefs, right? Like once you experience this kind of expressing this weird belief out loud, then you have to examine it, you have to deal with it, and you have to be like, am I okay with that? That's something that I deeply think? And then you get to kind of figure out and unwind that belief and choose something better for yourself, which is so exciting because like our beliefs really are the programming of our lives. If we believe something to be true about the world or about ourselves, then we then kind of automatically take actions that prove that thing to be, correct or, in alignment or whatever. And it's very uncomfortable when we don't. When you act against your beliefs, that's a very uncomfortable experience. I think that a lot of things, a lot of people don't realize that you can actually be the author of your beliefs and design your life in a way that is actually going to serve you and move you towards your goals. And that's a lot of the work that you and I do, Ellen, with our clients.
That's so true. And it's making me think about like when we have these beliefs, sometimes we don't even know where they came from, right? I mean, this a belief that you need to have alcohol to celebrate. I mean, that came from somewhere. I wasn't born with that belief, right? Like it came from messaging, it came from experience, it came from, and also I had confirmation bias. I was looking for when I was happily drinking, there was lots of perceived joy there in the opening of the special bottle of champagne and like before it was causing me problems, there was no cognitive dissonance around that. It was just like, yes, this is joyful, this is wonderful. And then time moved on and I was no longer fully embracing the joy of it. It was very challenging for me, but I still was holding so tightly. It's like that's what's so um painful, I think, about that part of the journey before we are really questioning, before we're changing our relationship with alcohol. It's like, it's so painful because we know that it's not joyful on one level. We know that it's not making things better, but, but we believe that it does. So it's like, it doesn't compute. And that is really uncomfortable. And to challenge the belief that when everybody around me is also giving me that message, it feels very threatening and confronting and scary and unknown and unknowable.
Yeah, I think that something that was just coming up for me when you were talking about that is the experience of celebrating something where alcohol is involved and like the factor of the other people around you. So like for me, if I go out somewhere for my birthday, we're either on St. Patrick's Day or it's my actual birthday or whatever, and I'm with friends, then in the past that would have involved like, people are putting drinks in my hand and it's just like that's the expectation is that I'm going to take them and like in the past that would have been me, right? Like I really played this role in my friend group where I'm the one that can go the hardest, drink the most. I set the pace. I'm the life of the party. Like I have that role to play. And then when I stopped drinking, I had to kind of renegotiate my role within my social circles. And I was really, really worried about that and really, really scared. But I guess my fear of changing my role in the social group was less than my fear of losing all of the wonderful things I was discovering with my alcohol-free life. And I wish I could say that it was like this is coming from a I'm moving towards something kind of thing, but it was actually I was more afraid of losing one thing than the other because it had become so important to me, right? Like the clarity that I was experiencing, the increased capacity to feel joy and show up in my authenticity, like all that stuff. I was not about to lose that so that I could just go play some role in a social group um, during a celebration that was supposed to be about me anyway. So
Yeah, that is really powerful because I think it speaks to what happens when we stop drinking. We start to care more about ourselves, right? Like we're starting to prioritize ourselves. And for you to say, I care more about how good I'm feeling and protecting that than I care about showing up in a way that's going to make my friends comfortable. Like, how new was that? Because I know for me, until I got that distance from alcohol, it was the opposite story. I was like, I cared more about showing up in ways that would make my friends feel comfortable and I would feel this belonging with them than I did with honoring what I really wanted or what I might be building towards. I mean, I can remember. Oh, good God. I mean, when you were talking about that you would be the one getting the drinks. I mean, what do you do when it's somebody's birthday? You want to buy them a drink. So the poor birthday person, although or you think lucky birthday person, right? I get to have all these free drinks, but sometimes it's way more than feels good. But of course, we don't ever want to say, no, 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 it's like an insult if I don't take your drink or if I don't, back in the days of shots, like do the shot with you or whatever, right?
I'm thinking about the many birthdays that, like when I was in my 20s, I had a great downtown apartment. It was, central to like our whole little area. And so my apartment would be where we would start and end every night. And so if somebody had a birthday in my friend group, we would start and end the night at my place usually. And I thought that was great because, I got to pregame before everybody showed up. And then I got to just crash out and go to bed whenever everybody was done. But I mean, I was never the first one done, and I was always the last one, right? Like I was always the one that was like watching the sun come up, sitting on the roof, and, just like wondering why I wasn't having more fun. But I can't tell you how many times that we'd take out one of my friends who didn't drink as much as I did. And because it was their birthday, they were having that experience that you were talking about where everybody's putting drinks in their hands and they haven't built up this tolerance that I had. And they would have a terrible end to the night. I mean, oftentimes, sick in my bathroom and, needing to sleep it off on the couch. And that was their birthday, right? Like that's how they spent their birthday. What are we doing? Like that's not fun. Like we should be doing things that are actually like life affirming if we're going to celebrate a birthday. Come on,
And it's so normalized, right? Like you think about, especially for young people, I think, but even as you get older, I mean, there becomes a certain age, I think, where it's no longer funny to end up vomiting all night long. Like I certainly reached the age where when that happened, I didn't think it was funny anymore. Whereas when I was young, it was like a badge of honor. It was like, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I used to play quarters in a high school, which is a drinking game. And you would do like, I mean, I didn't, it was like Bertles and James wine coolers. Um, but I would I have so much that I would end up vomiting and then I would come back and keep playing. I mean, and this was normal. I wasn't the only one doing that. It's like, and then of course the hangovers the next day, you celebrate them kind of with your friends, like, oh my God. And if you couldn't remember your birthday, like people might think that was the most hilarious thing ever. And it's like, wow, what as a society, what are we celebrating here? Like, really, what is it that we're honoring and celebrating? And when you when you're in it, you can't, there's no other way to see it. But when you get outside of it, it's like, I mean, if Annie talks about this in her new book, but it's like if you were an alien that came down to Earth and witnessed this, it would be like, wait a minute, they're paying to drink something that makes them sick and have no memories. Okay. Like it makes no sense.
You can't even remember the good time that you were supposed to have been having, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so much of that, like we kind of keep circling back on the um, factor of playing a role and making ourselves do something because that's what's expected and that's what society says that we need to do during a celebration. And that's something that is possible on the other side of figuring this stuff out is having more regard for yourself than you have for needing to fit into somebody else's container. But it's not necessarily a straight line. Like once you have this figured out, it's not something that's like, oh, well, I never struggle with that anymore because I've got it figured out, right? Like, didn't you recently have a cake incident?
Yeah. I mean, celebrations, I mean, we talk a lot about alcohol here, but just to give expand this out, we have so many beliefs around celebrations, right? One of them being that alcohol is required. But my latest birthday, I was 2-ish years alcohol free. I had been growing in my health journey, right? I was realizing the things that made me feel good and the things that don't make me feel good. And one of the things that I realized does not make me feel good is when I have like pastries or cookies or cake. in the morning because it just sets off this sugar spike for me. And then all day long, I'm going up and down. So, not that I never enjoy those things, I do because I really like those things, but I reserve them as often as I can for after dinner, like after a full meal. So it's not like hitting my bloodstream and it's not, and then, I can go to bed if I'm starting to get those sugar spikes and drops. It does disrupt my sleep though, so it's not a perfect solution, but as long as I want to keep sugar in my life to some degree, that's the best I can come up with. But I know for a fact that I do not do well with sugar in the morning. So it was my birthday. My sister was in town, and so she was offering to make a special birthday breakfast for me. And she's been on a health journey too. And so, we were talking about that and what I really wanted was like a really good omelet and some really nice, fresh local fruit. That was what I wanted for my birthday breakfast. And she asked me a couple times, like, because we grew up with a special coffee cake that my mom used to make for us for breakfast. So it's like, it's what I make for my girls on their birthday. It's like this very ritualistic celebration breakfast meal. So she kept coming back to me. Are you sure you don't want me to make that? Because will it feel like birthday if you don't have it? And I'm like, no, I don't want it. I want the omelet. She makes a great omelet. I was super excited about my omelet. um, and so she was like, okay, okay, okay. And then the morning of my birthday, she couldn't help herself. She's like, she didn't make the coffee cake, but she went and got cinnamon rolls because she was like, I don't think a birthday is a birthday without a sweet treat or breakfast. So it's like, it just goes to show how deeply ingrained it is. And here it was my birthday, told her what I wanted, and I'm not blaming her. It's just kind of funny, right? But then my reaction to that was, okay, this is really important to her. She obviously, we talked about it, and it's important, it's something about a birthday morning. And of course, now they're there. What am I going to do? Not eat them? She went through the effort to get them. So, of course, I had the cinnamon roll on my birthday, and I didn't want it. And was it delicious? Yes, of course. Cinnamon rolls are delicious, but that's not what I wanted. And so it just, you can remove alcohol or you put in anything for these beliefs that we have that are they come from somewhere. It might be your family, it might be society. And we just so often just acquiesce to make people around us happy. And so I would like to say that now I prioritize myself and now, so I didn't have but I did. But I learned something from it. I think next next birthday, I'll be one step closer to being like, you know what? Even if you bring the cinnamon rolls, I'm not eating them. I'm going to put mine away. I'm going to have it for dessert, like at dinner time. So, but it's hard. I mean, this stuff, if it was easy, it would, we would not be here talking about this, right? Like it's hard to go against society, family, expectations, what your brain is telling you is required. I mean, it takes a lot of rewiring and patience and practice.
Hmm. Ellen, I'm curious, and I mean, I know the answer, but I'm gonna set you up for it. If somebody was listening to this and they were like, dang, like they keep talking about taking responsibility for your beliefs and like rewiring that, how would you walk through the process of rewiring or at least confronting the belief that you have to have alcohol in order for it to be a celebration?
Well, the first question I would ask is that true? And the answer might be, your answer might be yes, hell yes, it's true. But like, let's just start to get some clarity. Okay, that's true for you. Where did that belief come from? Let's talk about that. Where is that? When did you first start believing that? Because at 5, you didn't believe that. So let's see when did you first start believing that? Where has, what evidence do you have that it's true? Is there any evidence out there that possibly it's not true? Like, have you ever had a birthday celebration without alcohol that was great, or been to someone else's, or, just really getting, that would be my first step, is to really understand where this belief comes from so that we then have the agency to decide whether or not we want to just on autopilot agree with whatever has been programmed into us, or if we want to take the steps towards like examining it and reimagining it. That would be the
Yeah,
first thing I would say. What are you thinking?
100%. I just the value of becoming aware in the first place of these beliefs that are driving you crazy and like putting you in situations that you don't want. It's not working for me anymore. Awareness is the very first step. It's opening the door to everything else. And you can't really do much about your beliefs until you make yourself aware of them. And so I think that a practical way that people can start to become more aware of those beliefs is to pause when you find yourself doing something you didn't want to do, or once again having some kind of negative result, like examining what led you there and what beliefs kind of put you into that spot. So like if you're waking up with a hangover and you're like, I'm so sick and tired of drinking more than I want to, what is going on with that? Ask yourself, what is the belief that you have that is undergirding the result that you no longer want? And if you can identify and like specify that belief, you are well on the way to understanding it and then eventually learning how to rewire it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like the best way to approach it is to start to experiment. Because, I mean, how many times have you worked with people or just even talked to people that will say, oh, I want to take a 30-day break, but not this month because I've got this celebration to go to, or but it's my birthday, or there's a 4th of July thing happening. So I can't do it. I'll do it after July 4th. There's always, and it so often it's either holidays or celebrations, right? That are the things that people hang on to. Like, I can't do it until that particular event is over because we just have that deeply, deeply ingrained belief that it's can't be done. So just picking one that's coming up in the next 30 days and being like, and you don't even have to like take a whole 30-day break, but like just like start to do that awareness work of when did I start believing that a July 4th potluck barbecue had to have alcohol? Because I know when I was 5 and I would go to the family barbecues, I wasn't drinking alcohol. So, but maybe I started watching all of the adults drinking at that time. And maybe that's when it first started, or maybe it's the advertisements that I see with all the people cheersing with the barbecue on the beach and happy. And, there's all this messaging that we get, and just kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and being like, oh, with compassion too, right? Because instead of being like, well, I don't, yeah, how stupid is that? Like, obviously, it doesn't need to be, that's not helpful because we believe these things for a reason and we're not alone. It's like everybody and their brother believes this stuff, we're not crazy for believing these things.
That's one of those things that stands out to me about this conversation is that when you say the thing out loud that like is the belief that everybody's struggling with, you're going to find so many other people are like, right? How crazy is this? Right? Like, um, because again, like you just said, Ellen, you're not alone in this struggle. And that's one of those things that you don't really like. I had no idea when I was drinking more than I wanted to. I had no idea that other people were also feeling exactly the same way. I really thought that it was like there are just people that are normal and they just drink and it's not really a problem for them. And then there are people who are like alcoholics and taking every day one day at a time and just white knuckling life and like miserable all the time because they have a disease. That's really what I thought because I
Yeah,
didn't
me
hear
too.
other people talking about this like like we are. And that's one of the reasons I know that you and I are really excited to be doing this podcast in the first place, like just to let people know you're not alone in this. And the the quieter that we are about our experiences and the more closed off and self-protective we are, the more there's room for shame to kind of fester in those kind of dark, unexamined corners. And the second you, like I was saying, say the quiet thing out loud and you recognize that there are so many other people that are experiencing the things that you're experiencing, there's no words for how um, connected and freeing that experience is.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think about, like, we're talking about celebrations. So, a birthday where you would celebrate with friends, end up over drinking, which was pretty much every birthday for me. And then seeing those friends the next day or the next time you see them, and then everyone being like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. We had such a good time. We were dancing till 3 a.m. Oh my gosh, how fun. And nobody mentioning anything about how crappy they felt the next day, waking up at 3 in the morning, being filled with regret, writing in my journal, I can't believe I did it again. Nobody's talking about that. Everyone's just glorifying the kind of the fun, crazy antics that we all got up to. And so in my mind, I was thinking, this was just super fun for like nobody else is having trouble remembering the end of the night. Nobody else is waking up in a cold, hot sweats, feeling regret and shame and sick to their stomach and maybe needing to go vomit and having a terrible headache and crawling out of bed the next day, pretending that I was okay because I was embarrassed that I overdrank so much. So let me just pretend that I actually didn't drink as much as I did. It just, the pretending is the most heartbreaking part of it when I think back on it, just how much I pretended because I felt like I was the only one. I felt so alone.
That's you were talking about the like glorifying the antics part.
Mhm.
And I was really worried when I went alcohol free that I'd never have crazy stories or these super fun late night experiences or these antics. Um, False. Like you can still go out and shake your butt until 3 in the morning and have a great laugh with your friends and not be schmammered and actually have more fun than you would have had if you were ingesting a poison that slows down your experience of reality and makes you feel sick. Um, I think that people really often are under the misconception that you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. uh, I'm just right now I'm hearing that phrase and I'm like, oh my God, what a terrible phrase. But like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like you get to have the fun and you don't get to have the burden of the hangover and the regret and things like that too. It's totally possible. And it might not sound possible right now, but that's just because you haven't done it yet.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember the first time I had the realization that it was like, wait a minute, I get to have a really fun night and a good morning. Like that felt like that was always my trade-off. Oh, it's my birthday. Okay, the next morning I'm just writing off. I know I can't do anything. I'm not going to schedule anything. I'm going to plan to sleep in. I'm going to plan to just have a slow day, right? And to know that I can like have a great birthday celebration and then wake up the next morning and like want to go on a walk or want to, like whatever. I had a dinner party that I hosted, which I always would have been, many bottles in. And I had a work call the next morning at like 7 a.m. and I could do them both. Like I was like, wait, what? I, it was always the trade-off for me of thinking, okay, if I have the 7 a.m. thing, I can't schedule anything because I don't trust myself to not overdrink. So I just won't make a plan. Or I'm going to have to cancel whatever's in the morning so I can have my fun night. And to not have to make that trade-off and to you feel like you won the lottery. Like, wait, I can have the good in the night and the good in the morning? What? Nobody talks about that.
It feels like a cheat code for life. Like when you get there and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm happier and more relaxed than I've ever been in my life, and I'm clear-minded and productive, and I get to have all this fun?" Are you like, "Wait, that's wild." And I don't know, like and you and I can talk about it, and I know that if I'm just putting myself back in, a few years ago when I was drinking more than I wanted to, listening to this, I'd have been like, "Pff," like they're just high on their own supply or whatever. Like they just like,
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed
but
it.
just,
Yeah.
I guess I would just say to that person, like, experience it. Like you just got to, you got to
Yeah.
go there to know there, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
But
and I don't want to give the belief too that it's all sunshine and roses. Like you're never going
no,
to have a bad day too. But I mean, we're talking specifically about celebrations and the ability to celebrate and have crazy fun times. And yes, you can. That doesn't mean that every moment of your life is going to feel like that when you go alcohol free, because that's just not reality. I mean, no life ever feels like that, no matter what you do. So, because we're not meant to like be in joy all the time. As much as I wanted that, I've come to recognize that that's just not the way life works.
yeah, 100%. Ellen, I'm going to ask you the question. If somebody's made it to this point in the podcast and they're thinking about how can I take some practical steps towards not feeling like I have to have alcohol in order to do a celebration, what would you advise them?
The first thing that came to mind, and there's so many different ways you could approach this, but I'm just going to go with the first one that came to mind, which is like, imagine, like, put on a hat that is, I'm a non drinker. I am a non drinker. Just put that on for a second. It might not fit, whatever, but just imagine that you're a non drinker. What would a non drinker do to celebrate? I had no idea. I had no idea. So it's a question, like you have to get really curious. Like if alcohol was not on the table, if there was not no alcohol was no part of a celebration, what would be celebratory to me? What would call to me? What sounds fun? What how do I want to spend my day? Do I care about going out in the evening, or would I rather do something fun during the day? Would I the sky's the limit, right? Like take try to really like start from scratch with like a beginner's mind, a total curiosity of like, if this day is really about me celebrating, feeling good, joyful, what does that mean to me? And it's going to be different for I'll ask that to 100 people. It's going to be 100 different answers. So like really get curious about what it is for you. And then investigate that a little bit and maybe try it, and you can practice not on your birthday if you want. You can be like, okay, my birthday's in July. I'm going to pick a day in June and practice this to see if I could really do it on my birthday. But like trying to let's break the myth, right? That alcohol is the only way to celebrate because there's lots of other ways. You go. What would you do? What would you say?
I was just thinking, you said that if you asked that question to 100 different people, you'd get 100 different answers, which is absolutely true. But when I was drinking, my answer for everything would have been to drink. And so I think how wonderful it is to have something else that you can do to celebrate, right? Like than than tying one on and drinking to excess. Like the alcohol is this incredible leveler, right? Where it can take a mundane Thursday night and make it have the same lived experience as a New Year's Eve or as a birthday, right? Like you're consuming the same substance if you're drinking frequently and more than you want to, like I was. Like you're consuming the same substance at its core, and you're getting the same outcome, right? Which is like feeling a little tiny burst of like a buzz and then chasing that for the rest of the night as you spiral into a terrible hangover and not feeling good in the morning, right? Like we've done this before. But the idea of approaching the question of a celebration with that beginner's mind that you were talking about, what would actually make me happy? What would I do if my default wasn't just to drink alcohol? There's so many different possibilities. You could go look at animals in a zoo. You could go roller skate. You could stare at clouds. I don't know. There's literally thousands of things you could do that wouldn't be the same as what you're doing all the time anyway, right? And what's more celebratory than doing something novel and fun? And so I just was strike. It was just struck me how much I love that answer.
Yeah, as you said that, I had this image, and I might have shared this before, but I remember vividly this one time, and it was Mother's Day. And I had gotten myself a bottle of champagne to celebrate Mother's Day because that's how I celebrated everything. And I can remember it was approaching 5 o'clock, thinking, oh, I'm going to open that bottle, and just feeling this level of disappointment that it didn't even feel special because I opened a bottle of bubbly. I mean, not the expensive bubbly, but I opened a bottle of bubbly on the regular, like a couple times a week, if not, depending on what phase I was in. If I was in like the bubbly phase, it might have been every day of the week. If I was in my white wine phase, it might have been more rare. But um, it didn't, like, I wanted so much for it to feel special that I got to open this bottle of bubbly on Mother's Day to make Mother's Day special. And it was just like such a, like you said, it was, I mean, it was just what I did every day. So it ceased to be special.
Yeah.
And how would like trying something totally new and different that might feel really special be, as an alternative?
Yeah. I think building on that, like being honest with yourself about what you would actually want. And, it for me, when I was drinking more than I wanted to, I was so, I didn't even know how out of touch with myself I was, but I was so out of touch with myself. I was a total stranger to me because I'd been silencing me with alcohol for years and years and years. And it can feel a little bit weird to be like, I could just, put myself back in that spot. It would have felt weird for me to be like, what do I really want? And to not just default to the top answer, which is to drink, right? Like, okay,
Mhm.
what's the other thing, right? What's something that's not that? And it would have taken me a few minutes. I'd have had to sit there to get in touch with what I actually wanted. But just because it wasn't like top of mind doesn't mean A, that it wasn't there, or that B, that it wasn't valuable, or C, that it wasn't attainable. That's still there for you. You have had experiences of celebration, I can almost guarantee, that didn't involve alcohol, right? Like there was a time before alcohol was running the entire show. And I hope for you that, as a child, there were joyous experiences that you had that felt celebratory that didn't involve alcohol. You've done it before. It could be a very long time ago, but you've done it before and you can do it again.
Yeah, and to your point of like not knowing, I think me too. And I think something that can help with that is like when you think, okay, what do I want on my birthday? I want to drink. The next question would be, what is it that the drink is giving me that I really want? Like what is drink? What do I really want? And I'm thinking that drinking is it like I want to feel special? I want to feel connected. I want to feel loved. I want to feel appreciated. Like, what is it that the opening of the bottle is going to make us feel? And then see if you can come up with something alternative that will maybe actually give you that feeling or get at least. I'm not going to say that I don't want to, be too confronting about the alcohol piece, but like you might have a better chance of getting what you want when you actually get what you want and not like not using alcohol as a substitute for what you want.
Yeah, it strikes me that when you're drinking more than you want to, it's like alcohol is the Swiss Army knife solution to everything.
Mhm.
But it doesn't actually do anything particularly well, except for the cycle of getting you slightly buzzed and then making you super hungover and feel bad, right? Like it does that really well. But
Yeah.
oftentimes in our minds, we attach so much other stuff to it that maybe in the past it's like gestured at, but accept no substitutes. Go for the real thing. And I love that question. Like, what job am I giving
Yeah.
alcohol in this instance? And how can I
Mhm.
get that need met so much better by something that can actually do that thing? You're worth not
Yeah.
having the substitute. You're worth not having the facsimile of having your needs met. You're worth actually
Mm.
getting your needs met.
Yeah. 100%. That question would have floored me in the past. I think I would have been like, what? I wouldn't, but then it's like, yeah, what do I really want? I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah. And something to revisit.
Mhm.
It'll change, it'll evolve. You'll get better and
Yeah.
better
And we have to
answers.
remember too, like, I'm alcohol free 2.5 years now. it's nice to be reminded that I can ask myself that question when I'm reaching for cake. What is it that I really want? Because we do use substitutes. So alcohol is just a particularly poor one.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Ellen, what a great conversation. Thank you for joining us on the Alcohol Myth podcast as we've been teasing apart the idea that you need alcohol to celebrate. I think we've shown that that's not really true. And I think if you examine your experience, you'll see many times when you've been able to celebrate without alcohol. So let's consider this myth busted. And I hope that you'll join us next time as we take on another one of the insidious alcohol myths. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Myth Podcast.
If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Send your questions, stories, or ideas for future episodes to thealcoholmyth@gmail.com.
We read every message. We really do.
Take good care of yourself. We'll see you next time.